Hi and welcome back. Let's get started then by taking a look at Task 1 of Unit 302, which is managing a team to achieve results, and talk about how you need to approach it. I'm making the assumption for the purposes of this tutorial that you've either completed a CMBD classroom-based course, or you've done a distance learning program, and or that you have accessed and completed the learning journey on the CMI's Management Direct site that accompanies Unit 302. You will get login details and instructions on how to activate this resource when we register you with the CMI for your qualification. So let's have a closer look at the aims of the unit, which you'll find on the first page of the guidance notes and the syllabus for Unit 302. You will see from the aims of the unit that it's all about managing and leading and communicating and supporting the members of your team to work towards the objectives of the business or organisation. And that literally is what you're going to write about. If you have your own team at the moment, then that's great. You can write about your actual real life experiences. If you don't have a team reporting to you yet, that's fine. You can write hypothetically, or you can write about previous experiences or how you have been managed and led in the past. Underneath the aims of the unit in the syllabus, you will see learning outcome number 1, and you'll see some indicative content guidance for each of the questions in the assignment. A couple of good practice things to do before you start answering any of the questions is to firstly put your name and the unit number in the header of the assignment brief. What this does is identifies you on each page of your assignment. Secondly, you should put a very short description of yourself and what you do and why you're doing a CMI assignment, where I've indicated on this example. This short paragraph is really useful for your assessor and the CMI moderator if your assignment is double checked. They may not know you, they may not know what you do, so it gives them a little bit of context as well as introducing yourself to them. It's not included in the word count, so you'll notice in that example I've put in brackets underneath, provided for context, not included in word count, to make that absolutely clear. So let's actually get started on writing this assignment. And we're going to look at 1A, as it's referred to on the assignment brief, and that is matched in the syllabus by 1.1 with some indicative content. So let's have a look at the indicative content for 1A and see how we might use that to frame our answer. And I'm going to refer to it as I've got a copy here. So 1.1, define the purpose of teams, and the indicative content says purpose may include, but is not limited to, common purpose and objectives, productivity, quality, support system, continuous improvement, new initiatives and ideas, etc. Now, if you're in a production team, you might write about how your organisation has, a bigger purpose, and explain how your production team helps them to achieve that by producing goods or services on time and to specification, etc. If you're in a customer service team, you might need to explain how you contribute towards the overall purpose of the organisation and maybe how you support other teams within the company. So let's move on to 1B on the assignment brief and 1.2 in the syllabus. This is where we're asked to explain different types of team, and the assignment brief is pre-populated with, if I have a look at it here, permanent, temporary, functional, project and virtual teams. You may have other types of team in your organisation, so feel free to delete and swap, but we're looking for 5. The best way to answer this is to try and find examples from within your own organisation or past experience. And let's just run through them to define what they are. Functional teams are specialists who provide a particular service generally to the whole organisation. Good examples of a functional team might be an HR department or a finance department who provide information and accounts to all the rest of the parts of the company. Permanent teams, it may well be that your team is a permanent team. Any group of people employed together, for example, a production department or customer services or warehousing, is likely to be a permanent team. Of course, a finance department, which I described earlier as a functional team, may also be a permanent team. Temporary teams are exactly that. They're brought together on a temporary, sometimes seasonal basis to take into account additional demand, and they're disbanded afterwards. Project teams, of course, you might think are similar, but project teams tend to be experts brought together to tackle something with a defined start point and defined end point, and may continually run projects, for example, if you are in a construction company. Lastly, virtual teams. COVID created lots of examples of virtual teams, people having to work from home using Zoom. But again, an IT team might be a good example to use if they provide services remotely. So remember, the best way to tackle this is to use examples from within your own organisation or your experience. So let's move on again to 1C, where you're asked to summarise team roles and their effect in a team. If you've done a CMBD course, you'll understand Belbin team roles, but the syllabus also refers to Honey's 5 team roles. Go with what you're comfortable with and what you understand. What we're not looking for, and perhaps the biggest mistake people make, is a description of the individual team roles. What we're really looking for is your understanding of that, how that affects your team. This is one of those sections where actually cutting and pasting a diagram of, for example, Belbin team roles in is really, really useful. It doesn't waste your word count and allows you to spend the words explaining the effect, for example, of having a team that has a lot of implementers and completer finishers in it. What's the impact of that on the way you need to manage them? What are their strengths and allowable weaknesses? And indeed, do you understand your own strengths and allowable weaknesses? If you do decide to cut and paste a diagram in that you've found on Google or somewhere similar, do remember to reference it. Where did you get it from? The Microsoft Word citation facility allows you to drop down a box and choose a website, and you just need to populate the boxes. And away we go. Okay, let's move on to 1D, where we're asked to look at the dynamics within a team. The indicative content talks about Myers-Briggs, it talks about personalities, it talks about knowledge and seniority. One model it doesn't mention is Tuckman's forming, storming, norming and performing model, which again we cover on the CMBD course. It's another one of those questions where posting in a diagram of that model can be quite useful. But it's, talk about your team. How did all these personalities and skills and things affect the team dynamics when they first came together? Did you go through the storming phase? Where are you now? Hopefully in the norming performing area. But also recognising that you understand that if, for example, you introduced a couple more people into the team, the dynamic would change and you would have to manage and be aware of that. The final question in task 1 is 1E, where we're asked to look at the advantages and the disadvantages of working in teams and working on our own. The best way to tackle this is to keep it very simple with 4 decent sentences about each of those 4 scenarios. The syllabus is quite useful here because there's lists of possible advantages and disadvantages which are good thought starters. My suggestion to everybody doing assignments is that once you've got that first task done, that's a good point to send your work to your tutor for feedback, just to check that your assignment technique is okay, that you've written everything as far as possible in the first person, and that you haven't missed any parts of any question. And I'll look forward to hopefully seeing you all for task 2 in the next video. Thank you for listening.